Blizzard have gone absolutely crazy, and they've nerfed Mei into the actual trash. They've also super buffed Pharah, and they've buffed Ashe with a ton of buffs. Reinhardt loses a bit of knockback resistance, which actually is quite a lot of knockback resistance when you read into it. And Genji gets a little bit of a buff. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the channel. So, the experimental card has updated. Now, remember, this is experimental. This actually isn't in the game right now, although it is in the game right now. So if you guys click the play button and go to the experimental card, it is now available for play. You can play this on Switch, Xbox, PS4, and of course on PC. And you can check out these balance changes, which typically in the past were sort of restricted to the PTR. Okay, so what are we looking at here? Well, you guys remember the massive hit scan removal from competitive. They were the hero bans last week. This left Pharah, and it left only Ashe available to counter Pharah in the hit scan category. So what were Blizzard trying to do? Well, if you're a bit of a conspiracy theorist, you can say, well, hey, Blizzard were probably trying to test the viability of Ashe and Pharah in a live environment. Now, I don't think it takes a genius to say Ashe on PC, Pharah on PC specifically. On console, that's not the breadth of my experience on console. I don't actually know how she performs on console, so you guys let me know in the comments below. But on PC, Pharah, not the strongest, right? Ashe, not the strongest just because there's, well, Soldier, there's McCree, there's like a ton of other options. There's Widowmaker. Why would you take an Ashe, right? There's a lot of heroes that are effectively just better and objectively better than Ashe. So that's why she probably needs looking at. So Blizzard go through the whole hero ban thing last week, and then they come out on not on PTR. I'm probably going to say that for years to come because I'm so used to it just being on the PTR. But they come out on the experimental card and they go, hey, this is what we're going to do to Pharah, and this is what we're going to do to Genji and to Ashe and to Mei and to Reinhardt. But let's take a look at Mei to begin with, because we are watching Mei footage in the background. You guys will know, or well, you'll notice that she's got 120 ammunition instead of 200. This is a direct nerf to her ability to freeze. Now, what they've also done is they have reduced the ammo cost of alternate fire. So no longer does this cost 20, it only costs 10. Now, the reason for this is to offset the reduction in primary ammo. So she can still effectively fire the same number of alternate fire shots as she could before. However, she has basically got half the freeze duration, or half the ammo to freeze people from primary fire. Of course, freeze duration and all that stays the same, so let me clarify that. So what this means is Mei has to make a decision here. No longer is she just about spamming freeze everywhere, which is generally what you do with a Mei. You just go into the fight, wall somebody off. You fire the odd, and that Diva Bomb, what the hell? You fire the odd sort of right click off or alternate fire, depending on what platform you play on. And then you're like, I'm just freezing. I'm doing Mei. I go into my ice block. I'm freezing again. This means you have to be very selective with your freeze. And it also means you can't just freeze a target and then freeze them again, because you probably won't have enough ammunition to do that. You'll be reloading in the middle of a fight and it'll be really, really awkward. So Mei gets destroyed here. This is like a massive nerf to Mei. And of course, I don't think anyone likes abilities in this game that take away the control of your character. It feels crap when you get froze. So I actually quite like this. I think this is pretty good. Whether this makes it to live, we don't know. Typically in the past experimental card, not all of the changes have actually made it to live. But I want you guys to let me know what you think about this in the comments below, because I think this is probably needed. And it is definitely shifting Mei's power away from, hey, just freezing to, well, maybe focus on alternate fire instead. Let's move on to Pharah, because Pharah has got, well, this is Blizzard going back on old changes to Pharah, because a while ago, they decided that Pharah should have less AoE damage and more impact damage. So what that meant is you really got rewarded if you could land direct rockets. But the knock-on effect of this is because the AoE damage was, basically the explosion damage was reduced, this meant it was much more difficult for Pharah to charge her ultimate. Because for years and years before that, all Pharah used to do is spam from range. Yeah, okay, you can get super close to people and dominate them with Pharah and all of that stuff. But generally, you're spamming into a choke, you're doing something like that. You're getting a ton of ultimate charge from doing it. And then Blizzard were like, no, you have to land rockets to basically do anything. Now they're going back on that in a way, because this is what the patch notes say. Explosion damage is increased from 65 to 80. That is 15 damage on what it normally is. But here's the thing. Impact damage has been decreased from 55 to 40. So what's happening here is a lot of offsets. They're saying, look, we are going to give you more ultimate charge because you do more damage from AoE damage, but we're reducing the impact damage as well. So if you are landing directs, and obviously it's in the middle of a team, you're not going to get like absolutely crazy ultimate generation. you're still going to get pretty good ultimate generation, but that's why the impact damage has been reduced. But this just makes Pharah overall more forgiving to play, because you don't need to land those direct rockets. You're just firing at the enemy team again. This is Blizzard undoing changes they've put forward in the past. Some people might argue this is a bit silly. Like, what the hell were Blizzard thinking with the changes before? Now they're coming back and changing it. What I'd say is, like, hey, at least they're open to making changes. And I reckon this change is a direct result of what happened in competitive last week with all of the hit scan bans. Blizzard were probably expecting Pharah to be this ultra-dominant hero. And we know, and in fact, I know from talking to Pharah one-trick players that they were not exactly, like, just dominating. It was still difficult. They were still getting a lot of pressure applied to them by Ashe. So it's interesting that Blizzard would then go and buff Ashe as a result. But this is probably a long time coming for Pharah players. They've probably been expecting a buff. Now, the big thing here is console. Like I said, I don't have a ton of experience with console. I do know that Pharah is quite oppressive on console. So if this change comes through, Pharah might go back to being super annoying as she was in the past on console. And actually, she still kind of is a bit annoying from what I've been told on console. You guys can correct me in the comments below. But this is where I would say, hey, Blizzard, if that's a problem, you do know that you can, well, make different changes on console, right? In fact, you've done this twice, I think, in the past before. And they actually did say years ago, hey, yeah, we'll balance console differently to PC. This might be one of those cases where they really need to sit back and go, you know what? We're going to balance differently for the platforms, because it just is not going to be viable to throw this out onto every platform. But yeah, this Pharah change makes Pharah, it makes her easy to play, right? It just straight up makes her easy to play for somebody like me who doesn't play Pharah. I find she feels more fluid, she feels better, she feels easier to get ultimate charge. And that's kind of Pharah. Let's go on to the Ashe change. So Ashe stuff is really funky. So what we've got here is the Viper. Now this is a primary fire, well, her weapon. Magazine size is increased from 12 to 15. So you've got an extra 3 bullets in the magazine. Shots no longer queue up the next shot if pressed slightly before recovery is finished. Now that might be a little bit confusing, but actually what that means is she's just smoother and quicker and more dynamic to play, because as it says, shots no longer queue up the next shot if pressed slightly before recovery is finished. Unscoped shots to reach maximum spread increased from 4 to 6. Now this means you can spam a bit more from the hip. Now I do try and do this in this video. You'll see me spamming generally in situations where I probably wouldn't have spammed before in the past. But those 4 shots being accurate is actually really good, because you've got these 4 pinpoint accurate shots. These 6 pinpoint accurate shots, whereas in the past it was only 4. That's actually really good, right? Before you need to stop firing and all of that good stuff. Unscoped shots can now be fired much more quickly after firing a scope shot. Again, this is increasing the fluidity of the hero, the speed of the hero. This just makes her feel better. And finally, you can now start reloading much more quickly after firing a scope shot. So again, this is all speed increases. This is faster reloads, faster scoping, unscoping, and firing, and reloading and firing, and less weapon spread, firing from the hip. These are all changes to make Ashe more viable. But the big problem with Ashe, it always comes back to, is she worth playing over all the other hit scan heroes in the game? What does she bring to the table that those other heroes bring to the table? Or what does she bring to the table that's actually better than your Soldier, than your McCree, than your Widowmaker? It's always going to be the problem with this hero. She is a fun hero to play, but she doesn't really get that level of value when compared to other heroes. This, though, is probably a good change, because they are trying to make her a little bit stronger. So we'll have to, we're just going to have to wait and see if this actually makes a difference. It's not as, I guess, easy to read as like the Pharah change and the Mei change, because it's very abundantly clear those changes are, you know, they're going to impact the hero in a very strong way. So let's talk about the other hit changes we've got here. So Genji, as you can see me kind of getting killed by Genji, or trying to kill a Genji. I get so annoyed, I'm like, getting a Genji, just punch you in the face. This is so terrible. So Genji's shurikens on secondary fire, recovery lowered from 0.7 to 0.65 seconds. So you can fire faster. You can fire 0.1 seconds faster with your secondary fire. So again, it's a little bit of a buff. It's not much. It's a bit of a buff. I know Genji players out there generally lose their mind, and they're like, well, any chance of some buffs, Blizzard? You've got buffs in the past, but they've been so minor. They've never really been like some mental crazy buff, and then Genji's just slammed straight into the meta. But you could argue that's because Genji's actually really powerful anyway. Does he really need super buffs? I don't know. Genji's strong in dive, and Genji's strong when he's playing against teams that don't include a Brig, don't include a McCree. Genji can do loads of work. It's just beautiful. Finally, we've got Reinhardt. Now, the Reinhardt stuff. You guys will remember that Reinhardt was given knockback resistance recently. And this was 50%. So this meant that Lucio couldn't really boop Reinhardt. Reinhardt wouldn't really get booped off ledges by a Hammond rolling into him, or anybody with any kind of knockback effect. Reinhardt was just like, haha, I don't really care about your knockback effect. It's 50% less effective on me, which in real world terms meant that he just didn't move, and it was really super strong. So what they've done on the experimental mode is they've reduced it from 50 to 30%. Now, this is a 20% reduction, and this is actually pretty huge. This means Lucio can go back to booping a Reinhardt. It's not like it used to be. You're not going to get booped into the atmosphere, but you can still get booped off places like the Eichenwald Bridge on the second point. You're going to get booped off the bridges on Lijiang Garden, for example. There's all these places where you are now vulnerable again. When I look at these changes, I think to myself, what will make it through to live? Probably the Reinhardt change. The Pharah change probably as well, although I think that should be looked at when it comes to moving to consoles, because I don't think that entirely works. The Mei change, maybe. The Genji change, probably, yeah, and the Ashe change. So I think this might be a case of all of these changes actually make it through to live. Let me know what you think about this, guys, in the comments below. I've been Stylosa, and this is my beautiful channel. If you guys enjoyed the video, then do subscribe to the channel. Remember, though, guys, I will be streaming tomorrow. If you're watching this game live, I would follow twitch.tv/Stylosa. I can't talk about what I'm streaming yet, but I can tell you guys I did take part in the Valorant closed alpha. I was going to say beta, but it was actually the closed alpha. There's going to be some really exciting stuff happening on my Twitch channel. So twitch.tv/Stylosa. Go and check that out. It's going to be beautiful. And I would follow that channel because there will be some great stuff happening next week on that channel as well. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll catch you on the next one. Toodaloo.